Okay. Sorry, I'm just about losing my voice. It's going to be a long day. Water. What I think we'll do is we'll go through to 11:15. We'll have a 5-minute break, get a cup of tea, pit stop, and then back into this so that we can keep things well lubricated and keep people well focused. So, Councillor Christine.
Well, thank you. Mine is a question.
And
Sorry,
Councillor Chris, I thought you were going to have a speak.
I would like to reserve my right to speak. Is that right? Could we scroll back down to your additional amendments, recommendations?
Yep.
As you know, sir, my concern, and we all sit around here with different issues, my concern is not that of the targeted transport rate. And I want to make that quite clear. I do have reservations about the way that we consulted on it, but I recognise the importance of that rate in terms of being able to make progress. My concern is around your 3, and that is managing the impacts of significant rate increases, because that just doesn't do it for me. It really doesn't do it for me, because it's not actually trying to look at those drivers in terms of the general rate increase, and I want to know what your thinking is in and around that. You know, you say we're not in crisis, but for those councillors that are representing areas where the rates have doubled since the beginning of this council, they are in crisis. So those people expect a voice at this table. We've made the decision, you tell us, that we're not going to have a rates cap. So for people facing huge increases, you've made that decision, okay? You've made it. But we're here under 3. Is there going to be a review of the activities we're involved in? Where is that body of work going to come from to actually bring the general rates increase down? Because I think where we are at the moment is completely unacceptable to a lot of people. So could you explain to me under 3, we were told by the CEO that we could not reconsider, that the Auditor General would rule it out, we couldn't reconsider a rates cap if we were to go and reconsider anything. Well, if we can't have a rates cap, then, you know, how do you see 3 playing out?
Well, this is, of course, against the backdrop that it's not me who's made this decision. It is us around the table, and where you were in a significant minority in terms of the rates cap and also the UAGC discussion. Although one of those votes was reasonably close. And just to pick up the point that Cam's making, while we work towards finding a reasonable way forward, I do agree with annual UAGC debates, you know, and quite happy to pick that up. You know, it's worthy of it. Things change, and so I think that's a reasonable solution. I'd certainly pick it up. Now, Chris, one of the ways, Councillor Christine, one of the ways of actually dealing with this, as I say, I mean, it's my view that we just need to quietly work our way through this and recognise the challenges in front of us, but also try and find a better way forward and find some compromises where we can. And so the issue of managing the impact of significant rate increases is a hard one to actually moderate, because there's such a difference of opinions around this table as to how you deal with rate revaluations. I mean, you've heard from Stephen as our Chief Exec that his view is that one of the ways is for us to really work strongly on the issue of postponements, that we don't put enough energy and effort into that as a consequence of that. So, Councillor Chris, I guess the one point that you've been making is your view is that capital value, in fact, is a system that tends to impact worse against the high value properties than the lower value properties or medium value properties, and that you would like to see us carry out a review to look at annual rental value or to land value. My response to you on that front is if that were to be a part of the review, I'd be happy to support that. You know, as you know, the legislation set in place capital value as the starting system. And I think most Aucklanders seem to be reasonably comfortable with that. But as we go and as we see how the impact of Auckland's growth has challenges around different parts of our community where their value increases are highest, and that can be, you know, in Otara or Epsom, quite frankly, because those are the two areas where you had some of the fastest growth. You know, it may be timely to actually try and find whether or not LV or AV might be a better alternative. You know, in the legacy councils, both Auckland and Manukau did AV. So, you know, we could, as a part of expanding out that proposed amendment and work to be done, add that. What I would also suggest is that we're probably about an hour, 2 hours away maybe from actually voting on this. Take the opportunity to work with the Chief Exec and my office to bring together something that you would see as being more inclusive of the outcomes that you'd like to see. I mean, I don't mind just sort of dropping it at my table and say, well, you're the mayor, sort it out. But, you know, I think there's also some benefit if there's a specific focus you would like to see that work do, that we hear from you and that you put it in front of us all for us to decide.
Mr. Chairman, you haven't addressed my question. You're talking about step 2, which is managing the impact of the rate in terms of the general rate. The question that I'm specifically putting to you is what are the drivers of the general rate? As I expressed to the Auditor General, we don't have a lot of contestable policy advice in this place as individual councillors. During the first term of this council, because of my concern over what I could see as a growing general rate increase, some of us got together and tried to put together an alternative budget, cutting back some areas of social spend. You know, we haven't had the opportunity in the 5 years in this council to really get back to a proper review that is consulted on with the public in terms of the range of activities that we are going to fund using ratepayers' funds. So I'm asking the specific question about where is that body of work going to take place? Will that be consulted upon? And then let's look at it. The other question I have is to the CEO. Did he specifically put to the Auditor General the issue of revisiting a decision around the rates cap, whether that is a possibility for us to consider today?
Actually, you can answer that one first. Mr. Chief Executive Officer, I need a drink.
For you, Chair, I think the Auditor General made it crystal clear to you this morning that if you change the financial model underpinning this LTP, we will not have an adopted LTP with an audit opinion by the 30th of June. So any material financial change you would contemplate today or tomorrow would not be able to be processed and to be in place by midnight on the 30th of June. I think she was absolutely crystal clear about that.
Mr. Chairman, you suggested
Okay, so
we're having a break at 11:15. Is the Auditor General still here? Could that be something that is I can discuss with her?
Yeah, she did make it clear that she has 77 other councils that she's auditing at the moment and trying to get that through by the 30th of June. Look, Councillor, the reason why I asked her to specifically address the issues that we did today was primarily because of your request. And so she has been here and she's answered all of our questions thus far. But I suspect if you gave her a personal call, she'd definitely take the call and would answer that. Now, the second question you asked is the review of services. Councillor Chris, we've been sitting around here for the last 18 months reviewing our services. And I've got to say that when I first of all dropped the initial mayoral proposal and proposed a reduction of $3 billion in capital spend and a major chunk out of operational costs, 17% out of our operational costs, there was an uproar, particularly from the bench behind you. The concern was that we were going to cut services, we were going to do this, that and the other thing. And all I was doing was basically trying to realign the budgets and actually reset them and actually try and find some savings. Now, we spent 18 months basically going through all of the budget. And that was the opportunity to raise any other areas where you think we ought to get out of. So we arrived at the 7th and 8th of May, having heard from 32,000 odd Aucklanders, having gone through a pretty rigorous review of all of our budgets, and in the end, signed off what I thought was a reasonably good balance around our budgets. And all of those issues, you had 18 months to basically address them through that time. And if there was anything else you wanted me to lead to chunk out, I would have loved to have heard from you during that time. But Councillor, if you want to start another review, we will on the 1st of July start the process of the next annual plan. Now I'm very happy to go through anything that you want to take out of the budget and look at it.
Mr. Chairman, with respect, these issues have been raised. The only offering that was put up was a dramatic reduction in parks and recreational facilities, which I do not believe that the public want to see. But I believe that there are savings that could be found in areas of social spend that are the legitimate responsibility of central government, and we have never been able to get that contestable policy advice coming through on those opportunities. So
Councillor, I'd like to therefore put you in a room with a discussion with Councillor Cathy on the issue of homeless budgets and stuff like that. Look, there's any number of differing views across this table where you like something, someone else doesn't. And it's that old story of finding the common medium, and as I said, I think by and large we found it pretty good.
But Mr. Chairman, isn't that the very purpose of consultation? Isn't that the very information that the people of Auckland should have been allowed to express a view on if their rates are going to double? You know, so I just believe that 3 that you have is inadequate.
Okay, so, and I've accepted your challenge, and so we're going to break for a cuppa for 5, and I encourage you to see if there's something that you can add to that gives you more comfort in terms of how we would go forward in that review. So it gives it some more direction.
Follow-up question when we come back then.
Okay, that's good. Now look, if I can just take the opportunity to say we're going to take a break. Now I've got a batting lineup at this point. After Christine, I've got Denise, I've got Councillor Dick, I've got Councillor Wayne, and then I've got George. That's probably as good enough a batting lineup at this point, isn't it? And Councillor Ross. Yeah, and Councillor Mike? Yeah, good. Okay, so 5, eh? Take a break. We stand adjourned.
Hey, mate.
Yeah.